point this towards you, Carl.
Don't say anything offensive.
Nolan didn't jump this time. Welcome, everybody. It's a special night. We appreciate everybody, all your attendance tonight. Hopefully my mic is kicking up everyone else's. But we would again like to a special welcome tonight when we honor our Cache County Sheriff's law enforcement. We honor them tonight and we appreciate them. We're going to have the presentation of the colors and pledge tonight by our Cache County Sheriff Honor Guard. And then afterward, we'll have our opening by Councilmember Mark Herds. So.
Left face. Present arms. Will you please follow me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms. Forward, march.
Please be seated. Go ahead.
So just a brief quote, and then I'll close my opening remarks with a prayer, but I felt this quote to be fitting for a day like today and a week like this week. So life, liberty, and property do not exist because men have made laws. On the contrary, it is the fact that life, liberty, and property existed beforehand that caused men to make laws in the first place. And in addition, to express thank you and gratitude to those who are asked to enforce those laws that we on this side, on the legislative side, work through and realize and recognize that boots on the ground, officers on the street, those in the situations of crisis and crisis intervention are really where the actions that protect life, liberty, and property come into play. And with that, I wish to say thank you on behalf of the council. Then I'd like to also offer a prayer. Our Father in heaven, we're very grateful to be gathered here for the council meeting for the Cache County. We're grateful for the blessing of living in a free country and for the opportunity we have as equal individuals to serve in various capacities to strengthen and participate in our community and making it the place that we want to live. We pray for thy hand to be in the actions that each of us take, that we will be guided to the appropriate and proper decisions in points where we are asked to make decisions that will affect others. We're grateful, Father, for those who serve our country in many ways, particularly in the field of battle and on our streets to protect and uphold the laws that in this country protect our freedom. We pray, Father, for continual blessing to be upon the family members of those present tonight, that they will have a blessing of peace and comfort at all times. We give thanks unto thee, Father, for the opportunity we have to associate one with another and to reach out to thee in prayer. We say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much. We thank the Cache County Sheriff Honor Guard also for the presentation of those colors and the pledge. I'll accept review and approval of the amended agenda, right?
So moved.
Second.
Moving second, that we approve the amended agenda. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. How about the minutes from April 23rd, 2024?
I'll move approval of the minutes of April 23rd, 2024.
Second.
Moving second, that we approve the minutes from April 23rd, 2024. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is unanimous. A short report from the county executive.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'd like to excuse County Executive Zook tonight. He's on county business at a meeting outside of the county tonight. And other than that, I have no other business. Appreciate being here.
Okay. At that point, we'll, under 6A, the Proclamation Law Enforcement Week Peace Officers Memorial. That'll be read by Vice Chair Barbara Tidwell.
Thank you, Chair. I wish he hadn't asked me because I can't hold my emotions in. You just need to know how much I respect each and every one of you for all that you do. So, I will read the proclamation. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th, 2024 as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week of May 12th through the 18th, 2024 as National Law Enforcement Week. And whereas the members of the Cache County Sheriff's Office play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of Cache County. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of the Cache County Sheriff's Office unceasingly provide a vital public service. Now therefore, in recognition of all law enforcement officers, and in particular the men and women in the Cache County Sheriff's Office, be it resolved that the Cache County Council and the Cache County Executive, County of Cache, State of Utah, hereby proclaim the week of May 12th through 18th, 2024 as Law Enforcement Week, and call upon all citizens of Cache County and all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe this week with appropriate ceremonies and observances, and which all of our people may join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their communities, and in so doing have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. And Wednesday, May 15th, 2024, as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and further call upon all citizens of Cache County to honor those law enforcement officers who through their courageous deeds have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community, or have become disabled in the performance of duty, and let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. In witness thereof, as Chair of the County Council and County Executive, we have hereunto set our hand this 14th day of May 2024, signed by David Erickson, Cache County Council Chair, and David Zook, Cache County Executive.
I'd entertain a motion to accept that.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and second that we accept this proclamation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is very unanimous. At this point, we'll turn the time over to you, Chad.
Well, first, thank you for letting us crash this every year and show recognition to the staff that we have at our office, and recognize some of the few of the many, many great things that our staff does every single day. This is National Law Enforcement Week, and as bad as things look in the news, the public still does love and respect law enforcement for the most part, and especially here in our valley. The relationships that we have with the citizens that we serve here locally, and the relationship we have with you as a council and the other cities and elected officials that we deal with and work with every day is just amazing. It is National Law Enforcement Week, and Wednesday, is Law Enforcement Memorial Day. It's important to not forget and always remember those who served before us that paved the way for public safety and law enforcement, not only in our nation, but in our state as well as here in Cache County. Kind of the old saying goes, you don't know where you're going unless you know where you started. And we've had great men and women in our community, in our public service, in our sheriff's office that have really set the trend on what we are today. And there's a history that goes with being a sheriff's deputy. There's some honor, there's pride, and we have, I don't say this because I'm sitting here before all of our peers, but I do see a lot what goes on across the state and what we have in Cache Valley, not only with the fantastic staff that we have, but the relationships that we have with our community is priceless. So we do want to honor those who have gone before us and have paved the way for us in law enforcement today, but it's also a week of recognition for the great things that our staff does every single day. Things that go unnoticed, things that may not be a big deal to some, but it's a big deal to the people's lives that each one of these folks represent and work with in times of crisis that really go unnoticed. We're going to recognize a few today, but there's hundreds that I could give today if time was permitting. So with that, would like to move towards our awards that we're going to give today. I'll do the reading. If I could just ask one thing from our staff, when we get done with the awards here, we'll not disrupt the council anymore. We'll move out to the front steps for pictures, and families, if you're here, plenty of time for pictures. We'll stay as long as everybody wants to, and that will be fantastic. So with that, we'll move forward. If I could have Curtis Kazir and Deputy Robert Price stand up and come forward as I read the Life Saving Award. The Life Saving Ribbon is presented to an employee who is directly involved in saving the life of another for actions, if not taken, would have most likely resulted in the death of another person, whether on or off duty. On December 11th, 2023, Curtis Kazir, athletic trainer at Skyview High School, was notified that a student in the high school's weight room was breathing irregularly and was non-responsive. Mr. Kazir responded to the scene in an attempt to revive this 16-year-old male student. Deputy Price, who was on his way home at the end of his shift, heard the call come over the radio and responded to the school to see if they needed any assistance. Upon arrival, Deputy Price recognized the need and began CPR on the student while Mr. Kazir ran for the AED. When he returned, Mr. Kazir administered the shock from the AED, and they continued CPR until the student regained consciousness. Due to the quick actions of Deputy Price and Mr. Kazir, the young man made a full recovery. It is an honor and a privilege to award the life-saving letter and award to Mr. Curtis Kazir and Deputy Robert Price. This one's for Sergeant Reed Tanner. He's not here tonight, but I'll read his letter in recognition as well. This is the Outstanding Achievement Award for the Criminal Division. The Outstanding Achievement Award is presented to a deputy or staff member that excel in the performance of their duty above and beyond that which is required during the daily course of their work. They have, exercised competence and have been able to inspire others to improve the quality of their work. The Cache County Sheriff's Office mission statement includes providing community protection, crime prevention, deputy safety, and a well-trained staff while working cooperatively with the citizens we serve. Sergeant Reed Tanner has embodied these actions in this mission. Sergeant Tanner has been responsible for many security-related changes that have significantly changed the landscape of our school resource deputies in their work. Working with others, Tanner's developed a curriculum for behavioral threat assessment and earned a position as an instructor. Sergeant Tanner has been pivotal in evaluating building security, coordinating emergency response plans, and training for the standard response protocols. In addition to his work with the school, Sergeant Tanner has instructed numerous other courses in our office: defensive tactics, firearms, and SWAT, just to name a few. He is always willing to step in and mentor other deputies when needed. Many of his peers have recognized Tanner as an outstanding instructor. His courses are well attended, and Sergeant Tanner's dedication to the safety of our community, schools, students, and peers has made him a true leader in law enforcement, and I'm pleased to award the Outstanding Achievement Award to Sergeant Reed Tanner. Sergeant Edwelson. This is another life-saving award. On September 23rd, 2023, Sergeant Randy Joe Edwelson checked on an inmate using the intake restroom. When she asked him how he was doing, he did not respond. Sergeant Edwelson then heard abnormal breathing sounds through the door and visually checked on the inmate using the sliding metal window. She observed the inmate slumped down against the back wall with something around his neck and tied to the metal railing above him. Sergeant Edwelson immediately called for assistance, opened the door, and removed the material from around the inmate's neck. Placing him into a recovery position, the inmate was still unresponsive and breathing abnormally. The deputies realized that it may also be possible overdose from narcotics taken before he was brought into jail and quickly requested Narcan and administered it to the individual. Due to Sergeant Randy Joe Edwelson's quick action, the inmate made a full recovery. It is an honor and a privilege to award Sergeant Randy Joe Edwelson the Life Saving Award. Sergeant Jenny Moser. Outstanding Achievement Award for the Jail Division. This past year has seen many changes within the Sheriff's Office. Simultaneously, several deputies were promoted to sergeant positions within the Jail Division. Due to these changes and promotions, she was one of the only supervisors in the Jail Division with supervisory experience. Sergeant Moser's leadership skills, knowledge, patience, that's questionable, have all been heavily relied upon through these transitions. Just kidding. Because of her willingness to mentor the newly promoted sergeants and lieutenant, the Cache County Jail is more easily navigated in a challenging year. Sergeant Moser is also the CERT commander, that's the jail's version of SWAT, which demands the intimate knowledge of the training opportunities, deputy skills, inmate behavior, and different tools to be utilized. Within the past year, many problematic inmates have required the CERT team specialized skill set. With her leadership, these CERT operations have run smoothly with the least amount of force necessary to bring these difficult inmates back into the facility's harmony. Sergeant Moser represents all of the 7 values of the Sheriff's Office while at work and in her personal life. She is a great example to those she supervises and all of her coworkers, and I am pleased to award the Outstanding Achievement Award in the Jail Division to Sergeant Jennifer Moser. Okay. Deputy Misty Garn from the Jail Division, she's not able to make it. She's actually on shift right now. Another Outstanding Achievement Award for the Jail Division. This past year, Deputy Garn was asked to help step into a leadership role for her shift. Although she has always been a leader on her shift, she took extra responsibilities such as personnel issues, scheduling, coaching, communicating with administration, our medical staff, and shift supervisors to ensure that Cache County Jail ran smoothly. During this period, many of Deputy Garn's coworkers expressed their appreciation for her knowledge as well as her professional example she sets. She always set a high standard for herself, which helps raise the standard in performance for all those around her. And I am pleased to award the Outstanding Achievement Award for the Jail Division to Deputy Misty Garn. Deputy Nicholas Wood. An Outstanding Achievement Award. During the past year, Deputy Wood has been involved in a difficult situation in which he has taken a leadership role and guided other deputies through tough situations. His coworkers look to him as a leader and commonly go to him for guidance. In one particular incident, an inmate attempted an escape to the jail by climbing into the ceiling through the inmate changing room. When it was discovered the inmate was missing, Deputy Wood immediately volunteered to search for him. Once he located the inmate, Deputy Wood is able to restrain him and devise a plan to safely bring him back to ground level. Deputy Wood showed bravery by climbing into the ceiling when it was unclear at the time if the inmate had armed himself while he was unaccounted for. His capacity to go above and beyond is admirable, and undoubtedly, he is a great asset to the Cache County Jail, and I'm pleased to award the Outstanding Achievement Award to Deputy Nicholas Wood. Okay, Patrol Division, an Outstanding Achievement Award goes to Nathan Wallentine. Is he present today? Let's see him. On December 24th, 2023, Deputy Nathan Wallentine was working his patrol shift when he located a vehicle that had just fled a traffic stop with the North Park Police Department. Deputy Wallentine attempted to stop the vehicle, but it fled and he pursued it. Due to unknown factors, there was a strong suspicion that the driver of this vehicle was impaired and therefore a danger to everyone on the road if he was allowed to continue. During the pursuit, the fleeing driver struck 3 separate vehicles, causing minor injuries to citizens. At this time, Deputy Wallentine realized that if the pursuit continued, the chances of someone being seriously hurt increased exponentially. After the suspect collided with another car, Deputy Wallentine was able to position his own vehicle and block the fleeing suspect's vehicle. The suspect then struck Deputy Wallentine's vehicle head-on, causing damage to both Wallentine and the suspect's vehicle. Deputy Wallentine deliberately positioned his vehicle to prevent the suspect from fleeing the scene. He knew the risk to himself and did it anyway to stop the pursuit and the risk or injury to any of the private citizens. Deputy Wallentine's willingness to place himself at risk to protect the public safety is worthy of commendation, and I am pleased to announce the Deputy Wallentine the Outstanding Achievement Award for the Patrol Division. Again, this is the Star Deputy Award, and I think Deputy Anderson's actually working right now. I saw him earlier today. The Star Deputy Award is presented to a deputy who during the year has rendered valuable, commendable service to a community through the Star Deputy program. This program is important in maintaining positive relationships with our communities in which we serve. Star deputies who build cooperative relationships with their assigned community leaders move the mission of the Patrol Division forward in our efforts to provide community protection and service. Deputy Mike Anderson has been the Star Deputy for Hiram City for the past few years. He goes above and beyond in his assignment to be proactive and cooperative with Hiram City Council and the Hiram City Mayor, meeting with them regularly, following up on issues promptly and professionally. Deputy Anderson recognizes the value of open communication with the city regarding citizen complaints, ordinance issues, and law enforcement advice while bridging the communication gap between the public, the city, and the Sheriff's Office. He understands that not every problem or complaint must be handled with an arrest or a citation, and that the public and the city are better served with honest, open, and problem-solving communication. Deputy Anderson signifies to Hiram City and the residents what it means to be an exemplary deputy sheriff. And then with great pleasure, I award the Star Deputy of the Year to Deputy Mike Anderson. Deputy Coulter Cottle, Support Services Division, Outstanding Achievement Award. Agent Cottle, he's part of our probation group, so he gets a different title. It's Agent Cottle, has been at the Cache County Probation Unit since August 2021. Over the past year, he has worked closely with the Recovery Courts, which runs through First District Court and significantly contributes to their success. One notable incident involved his work with mental health court participant. This individual was challenging to work with and created significant issues for both probation and for patrol. Agent Connell worked many hours on this case, working to coordinate services with the Cache County Attorney's Office, Bureau of Mental Health, the MCOT teams, and the courts. He presented many ideas and then took those ideas and put them into action. Due to his mental health issues, this individual has been removed from his home to try to keep his family safe from him. While he was homeless, Agent Cottle worked to provide him with equipment, supplies, to help him safe while waiting for other housing option. Agent Cottle spends many hours working with the individual to provide a successful outcome. We expect our probation agents to be problem solvers as they work a wide variety of circumstances, and Agent Cottle was a great example of this expectation, and we are pleased to award Agent Coulter Cottle an Outstanding Achievement Award for the Support Services Division. Outstanding Achievement Award for Support Services, Deputy Philip Yaney. During this past year, Deputy Yenny was assigned as the bailiff on Judge Fonspek's court. He looked for many ways to improve. Oh, you're here. Sorry. Walk on up here. He looked for many ways to improve the area he was in control of and implemented several ideas to bring things better for the people in the court. His ideas and actions have resulted in other bailiffs doing the same things in their own courtrooms. Deputy Yenny is able to use simple solutions to make things more pleasant for the court staff and court patrons. Deputy Yenny has made safety a priority. He has kept drugs and drug paraphernalia out of the courtroom on many occasions while still providing a positive and professional interaction with the public. Because of his knowledge of different functions of the court, he has been used as an OIC on numerous times. His sergeant has commented on how much he enjoys having him in the courts and how he is a great rapport with the other court staff and the public. His positive attitudes makes everyone's day better. And with great pride, we award Deputy Philip Yenny the Outstanding Achievement Award for the Support Services Division. Hey, Deputy Randy Adams. I saw him earlier. Okay, I'll just read his wing. This is an outstanding achievement, an office-wide outstanding achievement award. During this past year, Deputy Adams has stepped up and been a great leader for the peer support team. He consistently works behind the scenes to ensure the peer support program is the best it can be, as well as ensuring office employees are being checked up on and receiving any help they may need. If peer support team member is overwhelmed with their workload, Deputy Adams will step in and help them out. He always makes the well-being and mental health of others his top priority. As an employee of the jail division, he has spearheaded multiple debriefs for jail crews and critical incidents and continues to monitor those involved to ensure they are being followed up with peer support teams and/or therapists. Deputy Adams is always willing to go above and beyond what is expected of him. He is an excellent asset to the Cache County Sheriff's Office and the Sheriff's Office Peer Support Program, and I am pleased to award Outstanding Achievement Award to Deputy Randy Adams. Okay, I'm going to preference this one a little bit before we move on to that. And if we could have Kurt Jenkins, I saw him coming here, so the man of the hour, so to speak. We've all talked and see what's going on with new bills and legislation that impacts the safety and security of schools and what some of those obstacles have been this year. We've talked, for years, have talked about this. Lieutenant Barczy's talked about this with the schools. Even though this bill and the bills coming seem overwhelming and almost impossible in some respects as to what the bill requires, it's fantastic that the state is actually looking at legislation that protects our schools because I haven't seen it in my time at the Sheriff's Office. Kurt stands here before you today, and he's never not had that thought, even before bills were passed and sheriff's offices and schools were forced to do things. He's been on the forefront of a lot of things, security and safety moving forward. And it is his work, their work, that is going to lead the state out on what policies look like, response protocols look like for every agency in the state. And that is the commendation of the work that you've done. He thinks he's retiring. That's not going to happen. But with that, I would like to give the Sheriff's Medal to Kurt Jenkins this year. The Sheriff's Medal is presented at the discretion of the Sheriff to an employee or citizen for the service with distinction under extraordinary circumstances during an emergency or special operation or for exceptional service to the Sheriff's Office. Kurt Jenkins has been the Director of Student Services for the Cache County School District since 2018. Since then, he has been a champion for student and school security. Through his leadership, experience, and ability to collaborate with outside agencies, school administrators, teachers, and parents, monumental steps regarding school safety have placed the Cache County on the leading edge of school safety discussions in the state of Utah. Some noticeable changes include consistency in safety and security policies in all the schools, camera systems connected to dispatch, building accessibility to first responders, establishing training and behavioral threat assessment at the school level, creating emergency operation plan and school layout for all the schools in the district, emergency response protocols, and many, many, many more things that we could list. Through his collaboration, a new process now allows our 911 dispatchers to assist in securing a school in the event of a threat. This process results in a 0-minute dispatch time. When Kurt started this work, he commented on how slow it is to turn a big ship, meaning the school district. It's a big ship. Big ships need a wide path, many moving parts, and scores of people to make them turn. With his skills, passion, and leadership, Kurt has significantly turned the big ship, and because of this, first responders are faster and more efficient in making the community, teachers, and students safer. And I am pleased to award the Sheriff's Medal to Kurt Jenkins. Okay, with that, for the awards, thank you for always the support of the Sheriff's Office and public safety and law enforcement in our valley. Thank all of you for the work that you do, you continue to do, and for the other 180 employees that work for the Cache County Sheriff's Office. My job is easy. Literally, my job is easy. Your job is harder than my job. I'm just proud and privileged that I get to work with each one of you every day. So with that, if it's okay with the council, I will excuse us and we can, oh, sorry, Cottle, finish my spiel and you can go. We'll dismiss if I can have all of us move to the front steps and then we'll do some other things out there. So President Cottle.
Hey. I guess that works. So I am the current president of the Cache County Deputies Association. For those of you who don't know, the Cache County Deputies Association is a nonprofit that was formed within the Sheriff's Office for deputies and employees to become a member of. We do a lot of really fun things. We throw great parties, great events, but really the most important thing we do as a group is we help ourselves, we look out for each other, and we look out for others in our community. So yearly we get to choose to give a couple of awards for individuals who have shown positive light upon the Sheriff's Office or have gone above and beyond to help with Deputies Association business. So I just have 3 quick awards. Can I have Deputy Dishotel and Deputy Salanono come up? I don't think Deputy Salanono made it. Sorry, Dishotel, you're on your own. Well, I'm glad you are. All right, I'm going to read this real fast. The Cache County Deputies Association admires the effort you put forward in your daily job duties and in organizing the law enforcement torch run for the Special Olympics of Utah. In addition to your primary assignment at the Sheriff's Office, you take the necessary time to organize and plan this important event. The Law Enforcement Torch Run is the largest grassroots fundraiser and public awareness event for the Utah Special Olympics. The Law Enforcement Torch Run promotes inclusion and acceptance for everyone in our community. Your hard work in fundraising and organizing this event not only helps athletes participate in the Special Olympics, but is crucial in building positive relationships with the community we serve. Your effort is recognized and deeply appreciated. Thank you. All right, and then the last one we're going to give is the same award as the presidential award to Katie Jensen. So for those of you who don't know Katie, the Deputies Association would not be possible without Katie and her help that she gives us. So I'm just going to go ahead and read this before I keep making her blush. Katie Jensen has been a board member of the Cache County Deputies Association for a little over 10 years. In addition to Katie's current job assignments at the Sheriff's Office, she's the current secretary and a board member of the Cache County Deputies Association. Katie routinely manages and provides valuable input to help further the mission of the Cache County Deputies Association. Katie goes above and beyond in her role as a board member. Katie generously donates her own personal time and equipment to help deputies in need. Katie is a trusted member of the Cache County Sheriff's Office and is always willing to help someone in need. Katie Jensen's hard work and personal sacrifice is recognized and deeply appreciated. The Deputies Association thanks you for your dedication to our cause.
Sheriff, before you leave,
Please.
we'd actually really like to give you and all of you to show our gratitude and love. A standing ovation, please.
Thank you.
By the way, these medals here are also a little gift from the sheriff's office, so,
I found mine from last year.
yeah.
Saw those in the budget report last week.
Just accept it, Carl. Okay. With this in mind, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and go to 6B and 7A together. Mr. Mathis, if you'd go ahead and maybe, you said you could handle those both at once. We'll just go one right after the other and maybe save a few minutes there for us, so. Missions, regulations, and the Bear River Health Department committee report, so.
Thanks for, letting us be here. Yeah,
Thanks, Bryce.
combine these two.
They can party.
So, as required by state statute, we are required to report to the counties. The annual report for the Health Department. In your hands is that report. It has been approved by the Board of Health that is appointed by all three counties. I just want to run through a couple things. Just so you know, I know you guys make the appointments for Cache County, but just so you know who else is on the board. We have Commissioner Bill Cox, Commissioner Lee Perry. We have a restaurant owner from Box Elder County, Kevin Hall. And then we have the Chief Deputy Sheriff over there in Box Elder County, Kate Palmer. So we have a 9-member board. I really want to touch on this message real briefly because it really sets up the rest of this report. That graphic there, and for the audience, I'll make it a little bit bigger, really revolves around, we believe that if we're a great organization, that we will recruit great professionals to work and serve in our community. As we have great professionals, we will be able to create the partnerships that are required for us to be able to perform the work. Public health does not happen in a vacuum. Okay. Public health doesn't happen in a vacuum. Even with those that we regulate, we have to have a partnership there for good regulation to take place. Born out of good regulation or good partnership is increased access to opportunities. It says services on there, but I want you to think in regards to opportunities towards health. And when our population has increased access to opportunities to live an optimal life, they have the opportunity to be the healthiest people. And that really is the vision of the health department. So the rest of the report revolves around those 4 core areas. If you look at the next section, which is a great organization, we're actually working on a quality improvement project where we're seeking the public's input to really drive how we can improve in our service to the public. So that's one of the projects that we're working on. Obviously, core to being a great organization is fiscal responsibility. I can tell you that the Bear River Health Department is very fiscally responsible. We work within the budget that's approved by the Board of Health. And our audit just came back and we have 0 findings. That rolls up into the Cache County's audit as well. One of the things that I'd like to point out, which isn't really in this report though, is we're operating this year about $2 million less than we were last year. Most of that is an infusion of federal dollars that's residual from the pandemic response. It does require us to face some challenges as we look towards the future of how we address that continual rollback of funding. And we've built up infrastructure. How do we sustain that? How do we continue to move forward? And we're starting to try to work with the board and our leadership team to figure out how to address that. Really, our revenue comes from 3 different sources. We have county taxes that are a contribution from all 3 counties, makes up about 11% of our overall budget. Then we have about 29%, the math is a little bit wrong, but 29% comes from fees. So whether that's us billing insurance or getting a permit fee or things like that, that makes up about 29% of our budget. And then 60% of it is contracts that we have either through the Department of Health and Human Services or Department of Environmental Quality at the state. Most of that being federal pass-through. Any questions on the finances of the health department before I jump?
I have a question, Jordan. The contracts that you get through the federal government, is that pretty steady? Can you count on that? Is it something that's at risk some years, or how stable is that?
Many of them are stable, and by stable I mean they're flat. And so the ones that are the most stable have been flat for years, which means every year we're asked to do the same amount for a little bit less because you have increase in healthcare costs and increase with COLAs and trying to retain employees and things like that. So that becomes a little bit difficult, but not all of it's exactly stable, but the more stable ones are, unfortunately, they just remain flat. So.
Thank you.
Yep. So the next section is community partnerships, and I forgot to mention, if you'll notice the pictures on this annual report, we did a little photo contest and we got submissions from people throughout our community. All the ones in here are from William Phelps and also all happen to be Cache County. So really great pictures. We appreciate him allowing us to use those. We just completed our community health improvement plan process. It's fed through what we call a community health assessment. The community health assessment brings in data, looks at community input, and then through that, we look at what are some of the top priorities. We are just going through the process of finalizing our community health improvement plan. We just had a meeting. Some of the issues that rise to the top have really rise to what we determine to be social determinants of health. Things like affordable housing and how that impacts overall health and people's ability to spend discretional or their funds on things that will improve their health. We're also working on increasing data transparency through more and more dashboards and data available through our website. Currently, those are down as we're working on some maintenance there, but if you scan the QR code in probably about a week or so, it will take you to dashboards. We've worked with our hospital partners, particularly as we track communicable diseases, of what the healthcare providers in our community actually want to see with regards to those dashboards. And so we've appreciated their partnership there. The next one, access to opportunities or services. What we wanted to do is highlight something that we feel is really innovative, and that is mobile emissions. As you know, Cache County is an emissions county that require emissions for our vehicles. And we were approached by this individual, Daniel Dill, and said, couldn't we do mobile emissions testing? The modern vehicles don't require us to put anything in a tailpipe anymore. We can do it through a computer that connects directly to the vehicle and tells us the emissions. And so you don't necessarily have to have a physical location any longer. However, our regulation said that it is a stationary, a mobile, our emissions station is stationary, is that what it was? It was stationary. It was an actual brick and mortar building. And so we've made some changes, or we're planning to make some changes. The board approved for a pilot. It was successful. We have increased demand from other people other than Daniel that want to do this. And actually that picture right there is him coming to check my vehicle about 3 days late at our office because I realized that I hadn't gone and got my emissions done. And I wanted to make sure that I was current on my emissions. And I said, while we're doing this, can we snag a picture of it? This leads into that other item on the agenda. On June 5th, we will be holding a hearing about changes to that regulation that would not only allow for a change to allow for the mobile emissions, there's some other minor changes that would allow some exemptions for emergency vehicles on emissions. Some of our fire response vehicles are having problems in passing emissions due to access to parts, right? Which leads us to the other change is we also can allow an exemption. So say for instance, Micah has a vehicle, it won't pass emissions, and the part is just not available or there's a back order on it, we can allow that an exemption in those cases. So it allows for us to work with individuals so that they can continue to drive their vehicle. And so we're looking at those three changes. We put those out. Those changes are available for the public to be able to view. Really minor changes, but things that we feel will actually serve the public better. And so the reason I bring that up to you all is because if that hearing goes well and those regulations are approved by the Board of Health, they have to be ratified by this council as your ordinance is the one that governs our regulation. Does that make sense? So we will be back before this council to ask for support and offer any input from those hearings, from the hearing. Any questions on that?
How big is the if it goes well?
I think it's a really tiny if. Yeah, these are really positive changes.
If it was like 1.5 seconds, that made me worried.
They're really positive changes, and I'd be surprised if anyone is really opposed to any of these changes because they actually loosen the regulation to be more adaptable to the needs of both the public and us. And we've also already got the state and EPA on board with the changes. So
good.
The other thing, this program's gone out, but this one ties back to the emissions. We had some federal dollars that were designed to help us with regards to assisting people that were struggling with emissions related things. So we called it Repair or Replace. You may have heard of the program. If you had a vehicle that couldn't pass emissions, you could potentially qualify to either get money to potentially repair that, or if you needed to completely replace that. And so when you're looking at these dollars, we had close to $2 million go to the public, directly to the public, to assist them in either getting a new vehicle or getting their current vehicle replaced. Unfortunately, those dollars are now gone, but it was a very successful program, and we appreciated that we had those resources for individuals. Lastly, leading into Healthiest People, we just wanted to show some statistics. Leading causes of death. Heart disease is always the top of the list, and some people might say that's a bad thing. You also have to look at it that it's an indicator that people are living longer. Eventually, your heart will give out, and that may just be the case that they put on there. My grandfather was 96. Heart failure was what he died of. They just said his heart just kind of got old, and when it gets old, it eventually goes out. There wasn't really anything wrong with it other than he was old. So I don't think that we'll ever see that not in the top three. There may be nothing, even as we improve Cancer deaths are going up, unfortunately. Unintentional injuries are going down. Much of that has to do with vehicle safety, road safety, things like that. That used to be the leading cause of unintentional injury. We anticipate that as broad-based population immunity to COVID continues to increase, we'll probably see this drop off the list. But one of the sad things is suicide continues to be on the rise in our area and across the state. So those are some of the things to look at there. I wouldn't call them highlights necessarily. I don't know if you guys look at the county health rankings. Each year, county health rankings are put out, and Cache County improved from 6 to 5. Looking at population, really, our population does really well with many of the metrics. And the reason we put these metrics on here is if you want to improve population health, the two leading drivers are education and income. Education being the thing that will drive income more than anything. And we do really, really well in our area with regards to both of those aspects. And a couple other things, if you want to look at some of our specific service areas, you can look at that. One of the things to be of note is due to the fact that we do have many individuals relocating specifically to Cache County from other countries, our tuberculosis monitoring has increased quite a bit. Individuals come from those countries, they may have latent TB that becomes active TB when they get here. And then we have to do the monitoring and the treatment for that. That has increased quite a bit and can be somewhat time consuming. A couple other things to note, we continue to see increased need for behavioral health services, particularly mental health services, and we're trying to fill that gap as best we can, along with other partners in our community. And many of our community health services are very well received and have great outcomes as well. I'll let you just kind of look at those. But are there any other questions that you have for me? There's definitely challenges ahead, and we're looking to address those along with all of you. But
The challenges or opportunities?
both, I look at both. Yep. So.
Questions?
We appreciate
Yeah.
everything that you do.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity to serve great communities and work with great partners, and we have a great team at the health department of dedicated employees. We're grateful for them.
I was a little concerned, though, that Rich County slipped a rank from 10th to 11th. I thought you have to be really healthy to be, to survive Rich County. Come on.
Well, I have some issues with the rankings. Some of those aren't really indicators of health. They have things like access to dentists, and they only look at within that county's jurisdiction. Many of those people will go to the dentist in Evanston, right? Yeah. Or they come over here. It's not like they're not getting dental care, but the per capita rate of dentists in Rich County. Now, if you looked at the number of dentists that own cabins in Rich County, then you'd probably be all right. But those are some of the metrics that tend to drive down a rural community like that, although the access to services are really right next door. And most of those individuals that live over there understand that they have to travel for those services anyhow. So.
Appreciate it. Other questions? Thank you again. Appreciate that. Perfect timing. Mr. Phelps, we at least saw your pictures, right? Are you William? Oh, I thought he was. I just noticed the hair, so I thought you were. Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and at that point, let's go to 6C. Presentation and approval of the ARPA award recommendations. Alma?
So at the end of February, the county council approved some additional ARPA funds to be opened up so that county departments could apply for some projects. In the next couple of months, in March and April, we opened up the applications and we received 10 applications. They were, after the deadline, they were reviewed. 3 were found not eligible to be able to receive ARPA funding. And so the others, well, all of them were presented to the Appropriations Committee. And the Appropriations Committee actually talked to some of the applicants, and after some discussion, the Appropriations Committee ranked 5 of the 7 that were eligible to receive funding. They ranked 1 through 5, and so they're moving those to the county council for your to see if you want to recommend or approve them to receive ARPA funding. You should have these in your packet. This was a spreadsheet that was shared with you. And so the first 5 that are ranked, they total $500,000, a little over $500,000. And the funds that are available are just a little over $472,000.
I don't see,
I
yeah,
don't see
we,
it in my packet.
You don't see it?
I have to apologize, I just realized it's not in your packets.
Yeah.
I'll dig it up right now. It'll be up in just about 10 seconds. Okay, it should be there now.
Do you need to reload?
So refresh your packet.
Yeah, it has some green on it, or some colors.
Could you put that in smaller print?
Could, but we probably couldn't read it. Okay. He's going to put it up on the screen. And you can enlarge it. Do you want me to kind of review them, or you see that?
You guys see that?
So that's the first 5 ranked in order, starting with the ambulance. The Appropriation Committee ranked that as number 1, and then
I have
1,
a
2, 3,
question
4,
on
and 5.
what the heck is a pop-up bike lane initiative?
It is, it's devices that kind of like barriers of some sort, so that you could put them out in a temporary way, just to kind of test and see if an area, a particular road that you would put them on, if that would work. So it's like barriers. It doesn't provide anything permanent. So it's just kind of a testing and being able to find out if that area would be good for a bike lane before they determine or make it permanent. Has some signage and some barriers, markers.
Those that were on the Appropriation Committee, you looked probably a little more detail on these. Any comments there?
It made a lot of sense that communities that wanted to have safety bike lanes, but you'd hate to put one in and realize, oh, that doesn't really work for this area. They can kind of take these materials and use them temporarily and see, oh, that really does help the flow of traffic. That's a good place. And then they can decide whether to put the money as a community into permanent bike lanes. So that was, we thought that was a good function.
Others want to comment on that? On any of the ARPA funding requests? Now, the ambulance purchase, is that the entire ambulance or is that a portion?
No, the total budget is 385,000, and they're asking for 135,000 of that total budget.
Okay.
So we did discuss that if there, for what other reasons, if there are extra funds available towards the end of the year in ARPA funds, that's our number one priority, that we would put them towards that ambulance purchase.
Okay, any, no questions?
But
Seems to be a well thought out and sensible plan for these ARPA funds, in my mind.
yeah, the first responder mental health program is something that we had been funding through ARPA funds, but now the state has mandated that we have to do it, and so we need, so since we had that money, let's do it this year to
Yeah.
continue that. It's been a really great program.
The funds that are currently, that you've already put in a project, those funds will probably be expended sometime this year. And this amount of money is asking for funds for 25 and 26, or until they run out.
Okay, we'll appreciate it.
Okay?
Do we need a vote of approval on these?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll
Well,
second.
I have a question. Don't we need to decide what to do about the $28,000 shortfall? There's, for
Yeah.
what's requested, and what the appropriations committee ranked, there's $28,000 short from what everyone has asked for.
There was talk of money being left over from a couple other things.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would
that's-
go to that,
Yeah.
so.
There is. Next Monday, they're going to be starting in the parking lot, and that one came under bid, even with a change order. It's still going to be 100,000 plus under bid. And then there may be some others that they won't be able to spend all of the funds. And so those funds could become available. So however you want to handle that.
So if we just
The
approve all
shortfall.
these as done, those funds can automatically move over to fund these projects? When there's
That,
extra?
yeah.
You guys feel good about that?
That was my understanding, so.
Okay. It has been moved and Sue seconded it.
I'll second it.
Seconded. That we go ahead and approve these allocations for the ARPA awards. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Alma, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, let's pop down there to 11A. Resolution 2024-10. Giselle, you're going to present on it?
I am.
Please.
Thank you. Okay, I just wanted to present the code of conduct for the senior center. It just lays out the function of the senior center for the patrons that come and visit the center, lays out the function of the center and what we are expecting in their conduct towards each other and towards staff. In the code of conduct, it is letting patrons know and the public know what we do not provide, which is medical care for senior adults, medication distribution, daycare for any senior adult, nor personal care or bathroom assistance for senior adults. It does lay out for them what we do provide, which is wellness programs, special events, classes, activities, that sort of thing. And then it leads into laying out what constitutes a violation in their behavior. And it lays out all of that for them, which then goes into the disciplinary grievance and appeals procedures. That is for them if they are found to be breaking any of those. And then in the last part of it, it states the computer use policy for the patrons. As we only have 2 computers that are connected to the internet, since we are limited in space, we've asked our patrons to only be using them for about an hour each time. And so we have asked them to please follow that computer use policy. And that is the code of conduct.
Just why don't you clarify and help everybody understand the level of maybe disregard of this policy that patrons that come to the senior center display? There really hasn't been much, has there?
There hasn't been much in the way that we haven't had in the past. Recently, we've started noticing individuals that may treat us or even each other. There might be some racism or some discrimination amongst each other. And so we felt it very necessary to have our code of conduct to help them and to help us.
I agree totally with that. I just was curious as to if there are issues that we need to be addressing and that we hadn't been before.
I don't know how much I need to go into that.
No, that's all right. Just
Okay.
in general terms.
In general terms, I think just it's very interesting to know as regular adults as we are, we still have our passions and our ideas and our thoughts, and sometimes they collude with each other. And so we have noticed that it does occur. And so people have strong personalities and differences in what they believe, and that is what we face as we work with the public and as they have to learn, as we tell everyone, play in the sandbox together. It takes some type of guidance sometimes.
Giselle, can you tell us, you mentioned when we had our meeting, how long has it been since we updated this?
10 years.
Who is the grievance and appeal procedures? Who hears those?
So they first are going to come to me and my assistant, in which we are hearing and hoping we can work out some type of resolution. And then after that, it is going to the executives, to the executive.
Is there a registration process as people, when they come there, they have to
That is
abide by
correct.
these things just for use?
Yes, so as a new client that is coming or a patron coming to the center, we welcome them with a packet that lists all of these things. It has the code of conduct in there. And then on our registration form, it is a federal registration form, especially if they're going to come and participate in the nutrition programs. We need to have that data from them so that we can share that with the federal government. And in the bottom of that registration form, we are asking for a signature in which they abide by the code of conduct. And we do that every year.
Thank you.
And one other thing from the OMP that was brought up that this policy addresses is the computer use
Yes, that is new.
time on.
The time on that, yes,
How
we are.
long will you consider this?
Yes, we are seeing homelessness in our valley a lot more prevalent, and they are coming to the senior center, and which is a good thing. They are using the center for nutrition and for some activities, but sometimes we noticed that they were using it all day long, and so it became a little bit of an issue in which it didn't allow other individuals to participate in that activity.
I just want to thank Giselle for working on this. I know you worked a lot of hours putting this together, and it was a labor of love. And
Thank you.
appreciate what you do for our seniors.
Thank you, thank you.
Any other thoughts from those that are on OMP?
No, I think Giselle too, she did an awesome job in presenting this and having everything covered. So
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, this initial proposal,
With that, I would like to suspend the rules and make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-10.
I'll second it.
it is moved and second that we suspend the rules and approve Resolution 2024-10 on establishing the Cache County Senior Citizen Code of Conduct, computer use, disciplinary grievance, and appeal procedures. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. We appreciate that very much. Okay, 11B, consideration and approval of the RAPS board discussions. Yes, if you'd come up in case we have some questions, everyone get those. And are you've sent, Alma sent everything out there. He's done a great job this year, I thought, in organizing it. And I thought the process this year on the committee, I thought it was quite a bit smoother.
I would have liked another binder.
I've still got 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These
I've
are the
got-
binders here. This is all of it. This is all of the financial data, everything in all the applications. They fit it in 2 binders, and it's a lot to read, digest, and think about.
I would just
1,500
like to
pages.
thank the RAPS committee members. That is an enormous, enormous amount of work. And
You've been there.
Yeah.
been there,
I know.
but
Okay, now, whoa.
appreciate everything you've done.
I've kind of got a smile that usually you're the first one that speaks.
I agree with everything that's been,
Whoa. We thought for sure you'd want another $100,000 to the Festival of the Opera. Come on.
got everything they asked for.
Yeah, we actually jested about that earlier.
Put money down on that.
Yeah, we did. We knew. Me. Okay. Anyway, with that in mind, and with all of the allocations, and there is some residual to it that we have, what was that?
Good question. The residual,
I think it was on there too.
it was 300 and something, small print, so give me a second to see if I can read it. $386,665. So there was 77 applications, 1,500 pages of material to review. 6 were not funded, and of those 6, 1 was not eligible. So all of the others were funded, and, yeah, that left 386,000.
Okay, at this point, we'll turn it over to the county council. You can accept what has come from the committee, you can change, you can share questions on any of them. Alma can answer them.
I'll try.
We'll turn that over to the rest of the committee.
I just have a question for Alma about
bet.
those residual funds. Last year, we had another balance of 300 and some odd. Is that in addition to what was left, or is that the total fund balance at this point?
No, that was the total that was left from last year, and we just moved it forward. And so if this one is not used in any time between now and next time that the applications open up, it will be moved into that pot of money as well.
To the next year's application. Okay, thank you. Just wanted to clarify that.
Chair,
Yes, please.
I have a couple things. It seemed there was new as far as feasibility studies, and I added them up, and that's 11% of the RAPS budget. So I did some homework, called around on some of those things. I'm just not ready to make a decision on all of those feasibility studies. I'd like more information on some of those. There's quite a bit of money going to there. So I just, how that answers come or what, I know that the RAPS committee did a lot on there. I've also talked to some of these other people, the applicants, and I would like to ask that we consider giving some money to the Wellsville City on some of their applications. They applied 3. They are participating quite heavily on their trails and stuff like that, so that if we match that, they're matching some, so I'd like to give some more money there. Also, the Logan Downtown Alliance sent out an email talking about that they would like a little bit more money to help on the Top of Utah Marathon. That one is going to be state certified and some things going on there that is some interesting points. So just, it seemed heavy for the feasibility studies. As an example, I'm a water user. There was a request for a study on the feasibility of the Hiram Wellsville Canal. That's not even going to be ready or done for years. I called the engineer on that, so that takes that a little bit early on the study for that part, is my feeling, and as I talked with the district on that.
Who submitted that request?
It was the Development Services Office. So the developments, there are 3 of them here in the county, right? So there were 3 of them.
No one's here to ask them.
And so So I did not talk to the development services, but I did talk to the districts that are on that, and there's one in there that I'm not quite sure on. The big one that I really want to see more information on is the recreational facility. I agree we need some recreational facility out there, but I want to have some more understanding because that's a whopping amount of money, $200,000. So I just would like more information on it. So, but I would like to put in a plug for consideration that we help Wellsville out on some of their trails and their basketball courts and stuff like that. I went through all the others on there, and so that was just some of my talk and my concerns.
Okay, I'm going to go along with Nolan on that Recreation Center feasibility study. How much, and this was submitted by Development Services, how much of that 200,000 are they willing to put towards that, or are they wanting the whole 200,000? Do they have any skin in the game by adding some money to that? You know, that's what I'm wanting to know on that.
I can speak to a few of those things. I mean, we can start with your list, having reviewed all of the applications as to why Wellsville City was excluded on some of theirs, and then we could talk about the feasibility study. And Dave, I mean, we were here for the Wellsville City. The reason we funded partial requests for the Wellsville City is we didn't do any requests that had sidewalk. We thought that belonged to the municipality to provide their own sidewalk and any development that happens within the city. So that's why any of the requests that were brought to the RAPS committee for sidewalk building, we did not fund them.
But yet I saw one in as far as parking. So where do we draw the line for parking and for sidewalks?
Parking was for a park. It was to expand. Are you talking about Cornish?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so we thought they had funded part of theirs for their parking lot for the safety. They had a lot of people parking on the road, and we wanted to allow them to build the other part of their parking lot.
Okay, so that's one of three for Wellsville.
Yeah, we funded the, I'm trying to look through this real quick. Do you have anything you want to add on that?
Go ahead.
Had some considerable.
Nope.
One was the tennis courts. We did fund Wellsville. Sorry, I'm trying to find that quickly.
It wasn't the tennis courts, it was the other one.
We did not fund the tennis courts. That, there were too many questions. And Alma, can you help us? Or maybe we need to refer to our minutes on that one.
Yeah, we'd have
We
to,
came to a consensus as a committee that it wasn't as complete as we'd like, all the details on that.
yeah, the minutes are just kind of an overview, and we may have them refer to the recording, and that will be posted. Janine was trying to get that posted. And it was nice this year because it's alphabetical by applicant, so Wellsville could just go to the end, and there was some feedback from the different board members on these
Yeah.
different
And
applications.
then we went to their basketball courts and we did fund the basketball, 3/4 of their basketball court
But
request.
when you knock out just for sidewalk, there was also paths or walking or trails as part of that, not just sidewalks. And if we're talking about completeness on application, that's where I'm lacking on the recreational center too, because you might have seen that, but I haven't seen that. So for me to vote $200,000, I want to see more depth and stuff on that too. So
I agree with you, Nolan.
Well, I have a question about the recreation center, because I've heard from a lot of people that's something they would like to explore here in the valley. But my understanding was that it was a community, group of citizens that were getting together to explore that. And I thought that's who would be applying for the RAPS tax, was some citizens group, but it says it's the Community Development Department of the county. So how,
And to speak to that
I'm
too,
confused about that.
it is, municipalities are the ones who began the process and spoke to the county, but as we developed in that conversation, we spoke, we have an entity already set up on behalf of the county to drive that, and that is the county. So, I mean, if it's countywide, we already have that entity that can come in and provide. Again, this study is only to ask questions, right? To look at the feasibility. They're going to collect data to see what will the future be, because we have a lot of interest amongst all of our residents.
I
And
don't
this
think
is
we have a
collecting.
lot of interest. I know some who are opposed to it.
And I'm fine with the feasibility study, but 11% of the budget of RAPS towards studies seems
That
heavy
does
to me.
seem excessive to me, too.
I'd like to apply money to places that are ready to engage, what I call shovel in the ground, ready to go. And I think Wellsville and some of these others meet that criteria, that they're ready to put that money to effect. And I agree, study, but 11%, I don't know, because if this is gonna come before and there'll be studies, I'd like to say that there's a limit, somewhere to 5 to 10% or what, but 11% seems high, and 200,000 seems really high. And I talked with some people who were involved in that today, and they gave me some good pointers, and I appreciated that. But at the same time, they were like, okay, and here's part of my concern. As they talked about the recreational facility, they said, okay, do we serve up or create a district for taxation? I think before we even go down that road, we've got to talk about a district or taxation to help our emergency services in the county and get that solved before we start a district for recreation. Is my big concern, because we all know we're facing some situations as far as emergency services that we've got to fund and help on that. And so, and I'm not saying that a district would be the way that that recreational facility would be done, but that was a proposal and talk of some of those things. So I'm just saying those are things and reasons why I want to see more, if that makes sense on that.
Well, we have a lot of the elected officials from the municipalities that have really spearheaded that here. I'm sure they would be willing to, if the chair would indulge to answer
I
some
think
questions.
we'll allow, again, by request of each of the council, rather than open it up for, if the council would like to call on individuals, anyone from the council would call on individuals, that's fine, I think. But we're not gonna open it up for, for public comment.
Lindsay Peterson, Mayor of North Logan, I know has been instrumental in this, if you, I may.
Oh, yeah, that's by your request, that's great.
I think that maybe what I would point out is that we really want to do this correctly. So identifying a few things. One, the cost of it. Nibley City has done this just for their municipality. They are spending, you can speak to this, I don't know how much, $160,000 for Nibley City alone. For a feasibility study for a recreation center there. So yes, we as municipalities are planning on putting some skin in this game. We're planning on contributing. Logan City has mentioned that they would put in some money. Several municipalities in those conversations have said that they will put money towards this. What we want to do is we want to do this right. And if you look at how many people this serves in our county, I think it blows every other project on the list out of the water. I believe that we in North Logan serve 360,000 people, is that the right number, every year. And those are not unique users. But I think if you're comparing it to, take your pick of anything else on the list of what that money actually, like how many people that actually benefits, I think it kind of undergirds the reasons why we're trying to do this. And what we've done in good faith, I think, is we've gotten all of the municipalities together. There are letters of support for this feasibility study from 8 or 9 municipalities. And I think I would say that when we've conducted surveys, and I know that Nibley's had a similar experience, and if you're on Facebook, just anecdotally, you see that there is broad support for indoor recreation. It's a need in our valley because of the climate here. So while I would acknowledge there's always going to be opposition to this, I would say that is in the very strong minority, like very minimal.
I have a question for you. So you say that Nibley has put in how much?
160.
For a feasibility study?
Right.
And so how much is your community?
That's an independent study, that's not towards this study.
Oh, that's not
just
towards
the Nibley study, right?
Yeah. Okay. So how much is is your community willing to put in for this?
I think that we set a percentage on this, Dirk.
Yeah, so the original request was for a total of $300,000, and the amount that we picked that communities would all chip in on would be 50,000 of that. The percentage there is 16 2/3%. So we just kind of discussed in our last meeting, so if the RAPS tax and then the county council approves 200, then we would put in an additional 16 2/3%, up to an amount that would allow it to.
So in other words, the feasibility study is going to cost how much total?
Well, we won't know that until we get bids that come in. I think this is a good amount. Like, I think 250-ish is probably a reasonable amount that's going to cost. So I think, I don't know, to be completely frank with you, but I think it's really important that we're trying to do this in the right way. We're trying to not go forward and just say, I don't know, where should we build it? Who wants to? And we've really, I mean, with competing interests in all of those communities, we've been able to come together and say, you know, let's do this really deliberately, and let's make sure that we understand all the implications of this. You know, like, do we build 2 recreation centers? What do we house in each of them? What has been done in different communities as far as the oversight of these or ownership of these buildings? I don't want to do this from scratch. I don't know how to do that, to be quite honest. And so I think a feasibility study is necessary to understand this. And I understand, Nolan, to your point, I understand why there's a reluctance to do feasibility studies. I will say that a lot of times funding at the state level is tied to a feasibility study being in place so that the state knows that you've done your due diligence. I think they want to encourage this sort of behavior where, you know, you're really studying this out and trying to do it in the right way. And we're not trying to rush this through, you know. We want to do it piece by piece. And quite frankly, I would prefer for the county to completely take the reins on this. I think that would be appropriate. But I think we as cities are trying to say, look, we'll do the lifting in this. We'll try and shoulder this. We just need your support financially as a county.
What about cities like Smithfield who already have a rec center, rec program? Are they, like, is it going to be pieced together? Is it, how's that working? Like, Nibley's doing their own study. Are they going to have their own internal rec center that they don't participate in the rest of it?
I don't think so. I mean, Nibley can speak to that, but I think the idea generally is that, at least mine, is that there will be a north and a south rec center. And I will say that people don't respect borders as it is in terms of who goes to rec centers. I know that we as a rec center, as a recreation department, we serve 60% non-residents in our programs. So I've spoken with Smithfield. I can't really speak on their behalf right now, but that's why I think we're trying to be really collaborative here and to through this process articulate the details so that people can either get on board or not, you know, like, so I think it's hard because right now it's just saying, hey, do you like rec centers? You know, or do you need a rec center? Of course, Smithfield residents are going to say no, but I think as they, like, just for instance, in Smithfield, they don't own the pool in their rec center. That's a school district asset. And so is it threatening to them if we were to build a aquatic-based rec center in North Logan? I don't think so. But I don't think that, I think it'd be premature now to say, hey, where do you land on this? And I've addressed concerns from different constituents of mine, and what I've kind of gone to over and over is we don't know because we don't know the parameters without doing a study. So we're kind of in a tricky situation where it's like, I don't know, do we, excuse me, do we fund a feasibility study because why are we throwing so much money towards a study, but then we're in a bind because it's like, if we don't do the study, how can we actually answer these very specific questions that are coming in that really speak to whether people can support it?
See, and there lies part of mine. I mean, Smithfield is interesting because it is partnered with the school. So do we look at, is the recreation center going to be separate, or is it going to partner with the school? I represent some unincorporated parts of the county. When you start talking placement of that, and yet and how we tax or how we pay for it is part of the study, but that's why I'm trying to understand that too, because if you happen to live in Trenton, Newton, or Cornish, the valuable part of a rec center becomes less and less because you're so far away from it. So
Is that true though? I mean, like I came from a town of 2,000 and we accept it as part of living in a rural area.
and that's what I
that
hope
you
the
drive.
feasibility study will show. So
You do or do not?
I say I hope that will show that, but that's why I'm saying I'm not against the feasibility study. I'm just sitting here saying that of this budget, 11% is going to feasibility studies, trails, recreation center, and all of those others. And I'm just feeling that's high. And so I'm not saying who to cut or what to cut. I'm just saying when we do RAPS, it is to get things going and produce that. And that's why I pointed out Wellsville has some things ready to go on there. I understand there is support. Like I said, I called and talked to some of the people who are very much champion of the rec center. So I'm trying to get more information so that I can say, okay, that's cool, before I just say good and go for $200,000. Does that make sense?
It does. Just to speak to your point about the school district, we've spoken with Cache County School District about this. We collaborate with them a lot. They have expressed a desire to partner with a potential rec center, but they would support it and pay into, use of a pool, and are very supportive of it. But, like I said, this is all very ethereal until we really have a study and we have experts that say, here's how this looks. And here's how, is it viable? And if so, here's what you have to do to make it viable. So Nolan, I can't speak to you on a policy level of what percentage is correct to allocate to feasibility studies, but I can say that in this instance, this is a very valuable thing, and it is a crucial first step in this ever getting off the ground.
And I can appreciate that, but I hope you appreciate that the fact that it's $200,000, that I want to dig into it a little bit more, just from my standpoint, before I say yes and giddy up and go, just is my feeling, so.
And who's in charge? Who is managing who would manage the feasibility study? Hire the company, manage what they're studying?
So right now, it's a group of elected officials that form the governing body of this committee. And then there's a technical committee that is composed of just technical experts, so recreation directors, city administrators, that they're going to be the ones who actually draft this RFP. We're trying to be very careful about what the RFP says, because we know that you have to get the questions right in order to get information that's valuable. So that's the committee.
I'm just curious why no one from the county, you're wanting to do it as a county basis. Why were none of the county council members asked to be on that committee?
Oh, I mean, they're absolutely invited. I work closely with my representatives, but I mean, absolutely. I would love that. I would love participation from the county council. I think that we've been limited by interest at this point, I think it's absolutely appropriate that the county be involved.
I just have a question. You say that your community, if they were to spend the $200,000 and then it didn't turn out right, then it would be a hardship on your city. So why are we willing to spend $200,000 of this, and if it doesn't turn out right, how do we account for that money being spent?
I'm sorry, are you thinking about Nibley City?
No, just of what you said, you know, if it's $200,000 because of North Logan wanting it, and if it doesn't turn out that it's not feasible, then you feel like maybe you've wasted or, you know, spent $200,000 that you can't recover. So if we approve this study of 200,000 and the feasibility study comes back that it's not to be used, how do we explain that to our people that we spent that money?
Yeah, so I think that two things. One, I think our attitude, like at least with my council, has been that we have an obligation to listen to repeated requests from our citizens to explore this. It's something that we hear often, and I would assume that if you polled everyone, that you'd get a similar answer. I don't think that, I mean, this is speculation on my part. I think that what a feasibility study does is tells you how you can make something feasible. I don't think you're going to get an answer back from a company that says, nope, you can't do it. Thanks for your $200,000, we'll see ya. I think what it's going to say is, here are the ways that you can make this feasible. Here's how you set it up as a countywide system. Here's what's worked elsewhere. Here's what facilities you need to have in these recreation centers. So I think the calculation at that point is going to be, are we willing to do what it requires to build these? And ultimately, I think this is going to be a decision for voters, right? I mean, we're going to have to fund this at some point. So the citizens are going to get the chance to weigh in on this. And I guess I'm just asking for you guys to make possible the parameters, like finding out what the parameters are to make this happen. And then the voters can make a decision whether that's something that they're willing to undertake.
Thank you.
Other questions of anybody else, council, that you'd like to bring up?
Mayor Peterson from North Logan has represented basically with the same I'm hearing from the constituents in my district as well, is that there is a strong interest in what the scope, as at least has been described in very limited discussions as far as a rec center that would be serving the county-wide residents. Not that the existing rec centers are precluding currently, but I agree with the sentiment that if it's a county-wide program, there is, I think, additional doors open.
Well, I hear what Nolan is saying, and the question I have to ask is, how did we decide on a $200,000 number? I mean, do we have some kind of a...
That was the RAPS committee, actually. It was requested that they wanted 220.
250.
Yeah, but why was that number pegged?
It was based on the RFP that Nibley City had already issued to do a similar study, and theirs was 160 for the 8,000 residents in Nibley City. So
that was my question. Yeah. How did we come up with that number? What's the basis for it?
And I guess the way I feel about it is I'm torn because I'm just so passionate that we need a new senior center and we need some other things that are basic human needs that are not recreation. However, I think the RAPS tax money wouldn't be used for a senior center anyway. I think this is an appropriate use of the RAPS money. And if the feasibility study comes back with parameters that the voters are not willing to pay for, then that's something that, like Lindsay said, Mayor Peterson says, it will go to the voters of the county, whether they're willing to put forth the money of what it costs to build and maintain a recreation center. And we won't really know that. And so I think this pot of money is an appropriate use. I would not feel comfortable with the general fund or any tax money that we already have. But I feel a little more comfortable with this feasibility study, even though I personally, like I said, there's things that are higher priority for me, but I feel like this is a wise use of that money.
I think I would be more willing to approve this if I could see some money coming from North Logan to go with that. Apparently Nibley could come up with some money.
We've already indicated we are going to support this financially. and
again,
Logan
how
City.
much?
Well, we talked about the 16%.
How much
But
was
they,
that?
they don't have an RFP yet, so they don't know exactly what the total cost would be. So they're gonna construct the RFP to know the scope, and then that would tell them what the total cost of the study would be. So,
But our skin is in the game. We're willing to do that.
So
how many other municipalities have given their same commitment?
As far as financially,
As far as financially.
I know that Nibley's talked about that in the past. Logan City has talked about it in the past. North Logan. I honestly we haven't gotten to that point with this committee, but that's my expectation is that, you know, if we do a study to benefit the entire valley, that we have contributions from a lot of those municipalities.
And there were 8 mayors that signed their
8 or
support.
9.
Not 8 or
Yeah,
9
I
mayors
could
that signed their
list
support
those.
on the application, which
Yeah.
we were able to review of their support. Was that a general support, or is that like we will make up the difference in the cost support?
That was a general support. That was a general support.
Okay.
I will say that, if I can just speak a little bit to that, North Logan, if we are analyzing this just from North Logan's standpoint, we can build a recreation center for our citizens. It's going to be far different than if the expectation or the reality is that everyone comes to the recreation center. And so while I fully anticipate North Logan ponying up some money on this, realistically, I don't want to spearhead this. I'm just going to be honest. I'm tired. I'm tired from garbage. I'm tired from a lot of other things that I've done. But this issue has kind of been brought to the forefront there just politically, right? So this is something that there's political pressure to address. And if the county doesn't support this, if the county doesn't take a leadership role, I think an inferior result will occur.
And why would the county want to take the role and be in charge of a recreational?
I think this is quintessential county function. I mean, because I think to push this back at you, why would North Logan build a recreation center on the backs of its 12,000 residents when it's a county-wide need? And we know that the day that we open it up, it will likely be 60% or more citizens from outside our borders that come into that. I'm unwilling to do that as a mayor. You know, I'm unwilling to say, hey, citizens, I know you guys really want this. No one else is stepping up. I'm going to incur 80 million of debt or whatever it costs in our community. So I can't think of a more appropriate body to spearhead this. I would love county involvement in this board. Every county I've lived in up till now, this would be an obvious county thing. That said, we're willing to do this. There's a ton of support. There's some really great citizen groups who are really pushing this along. We're just asking that you guys help us with the study aspect of it.
She makes some very good points, however, and Sandy, you made good points that this is the proper money for that. I'm just having a hard time swallowing 11% of the reps. So from my point, I would like the chance to talk to my people in the South District to see their consideration or their level before I vote on this. I mean, I've got 4 communities with 4 mayors that I could talk to. So if, and everybody's right, there is going to be need and there's going to be people that use it. But as one person told me today, everybody's going to use it, but are they willing to pay for it? And Sandy, you brought up some good points. We've got some other things we've got to watch about cost. Senior Citizen Center, we've got the emergency services, our fire district we've got to figure out. So I'd almost like to say, okay, here's a priority of arrangements, because if we do this, there's going to be some costs that we put back onto our citizens, but I'm willing to vote, but I want some time to ask my constituents how they feel about that. And I would like to be able to say, okay, let's maybe give this a 2-week thing is what I'm asking, to see what I've got time to do some digging. I mean, I understand what Catherine and those on the RAPs have done a lot of study, and I appreciate that, and I recognize that, and I thank you for that too. But at the same time, I would like to put just a little bit more into it from my side of the South County and go from there. So, and then still, I want to fight for Wellsville to get some more money. The thing that they're working on for trails is 99,000. We gave them 39, so I'd like to match them a little bit better, and I'd like to help on the Top of Utah Marathon, because I think that helps the whole county as well, and just work from there, so.
I'm agreeable with Nolan. I'm in Logan. I'd like to talk to Mayor Daines and see, where they're coming from on this and have a little bit more time.
She copied me to an email she sent you. She's very supportive, explicitly supportive of this. But, I mean, don't take my word for it. There's an email she sent a couple weeks ago to her representatives on the council.
And I'm not expecting you to give me the answer for this, but they have their recreation center here. I want to talk to her, okay, if they're.
They don't. They're splitting from, and really that's kind of been the catalyst to a lot of this.
Oh.
I don't think that's for sure yet.
I believe it's a matter of weeks.
Oh, I'd heard otherwise the other day, so.
Yeah, that's what I understood. It's
Yeah.
different.
It's a matter of weeks to months when they won't have a home anymore, the Logan Rec Department.
Okay.
So anyway, that is something for sure, like I said, this is largely actually being driven by Logan residents. So.
Okay, I'll talk to the committee about that. So thank you, I appreciate that.
Anything else from me?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe we ought to table this for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Well, I think that you've got, personally, there's two things here. One is, there's if we want, or you personally, or whatever, if you want a recreation center and you want everybody in the county to pay for it, and that's a whole nother issue. Here is, do we use RAPS funds to fund studies? Micah put together a little, he researched everything way back to when it first started, 2011.
I appreciate that. I'm glad you had the
And
insight to-
I asked them to look into all that, and there was one feasibility study that was done at the time when we did the event center down there, and that was for 11,000. And then all of a sudden last year we had a bunch pop up on trails, on feasibilities, and to me I think they kind of got snuck in there. I'm sitting there going, before I fund any feasibility studies, I probably ought to fund those that are ready to build or do something with it right now. And the other thing is that's kind of interesting to me is that feasibility studies, that to me it's putting a lot of money. For one, they end up going into a budget, and then they kind of some things get used out of there, not necessarily for the feasibility studies and back and forth. But when they get put in those budgets, it does pad those budgets in some ways.
But Alma does audit that they're used for the.
Right.
His staff that audits.
Right.
It doesn't just go into.
But anyway, it's basically all these other organizations have already done their feasibility studies or their risk assessments, whatever it may be, and they're willing to take on those things already. Mm-hmm. And I'm one of those that we passed the RAPS tax here just 2 years ago. Anyway, to renew it for another 10 years. And I think that it was basically understood, at least if you look at what RAPS tax really represents, it really doesn't say in there that it would be used for feasibility studies. If you look at really what it's supposed to be used for. It doesn't say it in there specific, right, Micah? We looked that up.
Yeah, it's in the county code, that it is for funding facilities and for operating expenses.
Yeah. And to me, when it says funding facilities, meaning that, hey, this is what it's gonna cost, now let's build it, rather than let's find out how everyone feels. The other thing with recreation, even with to me, and this is me speaking, but recreation is a choice. The arts, everything about it, it's all choice. And as soon as we go into recreation centers and we bond for those, and so schools, everything, and then we put them out there for a vote, all those things, and there are a lot of things, but to me, recreation is still a choice, that people should be able to choose whether they are going to go to a facility and patronize that facility or not, For example, yeah, if we build a facility and everyone has to pay for it, we've taken that choice right away from them. And I'm one of those that says, if I'm not going to use the facility, I probably don't really want to have to pay for it. Because it doesn't add to my safety, it doesn't add to my, these kind of things that really helps as far as the necessities of what government should be covering anyway. The necessities, what government should be covering. And we're having a hard time covering those already. And I don't want to grow government at all. I don't want another whole department and grow it, that we have to start looking, we have to build a recreation department and it starts growing, and then we have to fund that, and all those people get raises and so forth and so forth. And I'm not really into that. But as far as using RAPS tax money to fund studies, I don't think we should be even considering those things for the studies. The studies should be done through some other way of budgets if it's really that important. Or we better have paid for those that are real shovel-ready projects. We better have paid for all those first before we start planning for those that are that we think we may do. There's a lot of feasibility studies I've always seen, is that sometimes you get to the right organization and say, this is what we want you to find out, and then they find out what you want, what you tell them. That's kind of how the government feasibility studies, a lot of them. Or they have different avenues to get it. I liked what Mayor Peterson said, is that you may get down so far and you may be better off to do a tangent here, a tangent there, and they often happen that way. I commend Nibley for jumping up and basically saying, what? It's important to Nibley. You've done your feasibility. You're working on that right now, are you?
Just about ready to sign a contract.
Yeah. Oh, but that's Nibley going after it. It's important to Nibley. And I say terrific. And I think any other city and entity ought to go do the same thing if it's really that important for them. Now, people from outside come in there. Yeah, there's a lot of zip codes all throughout. They come there by choice. By choice. And you know what? If we go there by choice, we ought to pay for it. And I don't want to be in direct competition, by the way, to a lot of other 30, I think there's almost just under 40 other indoor recreation workout facilities, all these kind of things already established that are private business. I sure don't want to compete that much against them. That's just my thoughts. Now, so we got to decide on the feasibility stuff, whether to use that, but go ahead.
If we're giving our thoughts, I'll go ahead. I love this council, and I love our dynamic. And I love that we have so much diversity here, because we have majority of a council who doesn't have children at home and who isn't driving at 11 o'clock at night to go to a soccer game in North Logan, because that's the only time you can actually schedule it. And that it comes down to what are our citizens willing to pay for. And I don't think we can actually quantify that until we get answers to these fundamental questions that we're trying to ask. And we do that as a county because this is a service that's going to benefit the entire county. And then we ask the citizens, okay, this is what we've come as the professionals have come and through collection of data have found that these are the services that are the most needed in the community at this time. Then we ask our residents if they want to pay for it. I don't know why that would fall to Nibley. I don't know why that would fall to North Logan. Why would we have a county government if we can't do that as a county government? It doesn't belong to just one municipality. It belongs to one that serves the whole county.
Well, Dave, I appreciate what you've said, what Nolan said, and frankly, I'm in concurrence with that. I don't like the notion of using RAPS funds, which is a tax paid from people using restaurants, people using hotels, and other sources that are coming into Cache Valley to fund a study. I like the shovel-ready notion, and the notion that RAPS taxes to be used for ongoing operations of these entities that are bringing in people that pay the tax. That's been my platform for 8 years. And the entities that bring visitors to Cache Valley who pay the tax from whence these funds come ought to be the ones that we support first and foremost, because that's where the money comes from. And as Micah's study review pointed out, we didn't really fund any kind of studies prior to last year. And so I think we're maybe setting a poor precedent in funding a study for something that will not bring RAPS dollars into the valley. And it's a recreational item that people need and want and use, but I think the funds for that ought to come from a different source outside of RAPS.
Carl, did you see any that drew people in that weren't fully funded? Drew outsiders into the valley? So they are fully funded. Those requests were fully funded.
Not all.
Not all, but pretty much. And I think that was good. But again, I have a hard time funding a study by using RAPS funds.
Well,
Micah, remind me the code number so I can confirm.
3.82.020.
3.82, sorry.
And I can read that again. This is from county code.
I'm just gonna look over.
3.82.020. The monies generated from the tax reimposed in this chapter shall be used for financing recreational and zoological facilities within Cache County or a city or town located in the county, and ongoing operating expenses of botanical, cultural, and zoological organizations within the county.
Okay, now as far as we've had a few suggest some changes and everything. I guess, I don't think we're quite ready to vote on this, are we? That's so why don't we go through, write down some suggestions, some additions, deletions, whatever it may be. Micah, would you collect these? And then kind of put these together so that these can be, at the next Cache County Council meeting, that they can be shared and basically changes. I think, Alma, we need to decide next meeting, right? I think.
Yes. County code says that you need to decide, the funds need to be allocated by the second council meeting in May.
Yeah, so the burden will be that we make sure we do our due diligence and figure these things out. And I see a lot of people that have a lot of interest, both positive, negative, whatever it may be. Find your council representative and take the heat out on them. Do not go back to the RAPS committee. They are volunteers. They were kind enough to go through all of this and to give us that time and and they just brought suggestions to the council. They are not appropriating it. This council appropriates it, so go after us, okay?
Thanks, Dave.
Please, I'm sorry, but I will defend those committee members, those volunteers. They are so kind to sit there in hours and hours of going through that. That is not easy.
And
Go
in
ahead.
that same vein, I welcome questions, as David, I'm sure would as well, as somebody that was there, as to why some allocations were given as they were. Some had really a lot of cash and reserves, and we thought it was inappropriate to give them additional funding, the taxpayer for having hundreds of thousands of dollars in reserves. I mean, there was a lot of rationale into why these decisions were made. So I would welcome any questions that you have.
Participation.
Participation, yes. All of those are, there was much discussion. And so if you do have a question as to why something was funded a certain way, especially if you feel it's something that brings in additional patronage to the valley, I think it would be really, it would behoove all of us to have that discussion, and I would love to have that conversation with you.
Any other questions? I appreciate everyone sharing, and I hope that worked out. Mayor Peterson, thank you for coming up and sharing. You know, it really wasn't a public comment period, but by request, again, of each of the council, if they want someone, I think that's appropriate to do. So we appreciate you doing that. So with that in mind, let's go to the next other business.
Do we need to make a motion, or we don't have to make a motion?
No, there won't be any motion on that until the next
Okay.
meeting. So thank you all for coming. Richmond Black and White Days. Anyone like to attend that parade?
I can't, I'll be busy otherwise.
Try to get there to pass out the stuff.
Well, I'll be there myself. I've got a spot there, so that would be wonderful. I appreciate your help there.
I got conflicting Pheasants Forever banquet.
A what?
Pheasants Forever?
Oh.
That sounds like a love affair.
It is.
It is, though. Actually, I understand.
They all live in my backyard, so.
Feed a bird hunting dog for 52 weeks out of the year to use them for a month.
Yeah, I go to North Dakota for that, so.
I will try and be there.
Okay, we'll correlate in between then, so. Okay, 12B. This is your baby right now, isn't it? If you'd go ahead and share that with us, that information, that would be terrific.
Yeah, so this,
I believe this is also brought up in ordinance and policy?
yeah, so this is something that the Ordinance and Policy Review Committee has been discussing for the last couple of meetings. The chair of that committee is Councilwoman Tidwell, and she asked that I come to the council and kind of brief the council on what this upcoming policy will entail. So this policy that we're talking about in O&P is actually probably going to be at least one resolution and one ordinance, possibly two resolutions and an ordinance. So I have up here on the screen, this is just an example of a departmental budget. This is the council's departmental budget, actually. And you'll see on the far left here, these codes, these 10-digit codes. Each one of these codes signifies a specific line item in the budget. And the 3 digits at the end of that 10-digit code are really what this policy is going to sort of be about. So let me explain each part of this 10-digit code. The first 3 digits are the fund that expense is coming out of. So 100 is the general fund. For the purposes of this discussion, it's not super relevant. The 4-digit code is the department. 4112 is the council's departmental code. So you'll see every line item on this list has 100-4112 because every expense that the council as a department makes comes out of the general fund and out of that. But then the line item is a unique code. It's a 3-digit code. And you'll see, so right here at the top, we have a 3-digit line item of 110 for full-time employees. Now, for this specific line, if you guys are looking at this, I am the only full-time employee of the council, but that is not what I make. You guys are also considered full-time employees.
Wow.
For the purposes of the budget, council members are full-time employees. I really don't know why. And then you'll see 115 is overtime, 130 employee benefits on down. Now, these 3-digit codes are standard throughout the county. So I could go into any other department. I could go to Public Works. I could go to the attorneys, the clerk, and the 110 code is going to be for full-time employees, 115 for overtime, 230 for travel. But some of them are unique. So the council has a unique code in 231 in NACO travel. That's a unique code that was created a few years ago. But actually, pretty much every other code in the council's budget is one that you see in others as well. So 310 is always professional and technical. 240 is always office expense and supplies across the entire county. What the policy that's being considered would do is it would create standard definitions for these 3-digit codes and those definitions would apply throughout the county. So 110, these top ones, 110, 115, and 130, pretty simple to understand. And that really isn't, not much would really change there. But where it gets interesting might be this 230 line. 230 is for travel. And again, that's the travel line for the entire county. What this policy would do is it would say that 230 line can be used for things like flights, for hotels, and possibly like a rental vehicle. But then we also, so the council does not have this code, but other departments have what is an education and training. And I actually can't remember what the 3-digit code is for that one. And what some departments will do is if they go to a conference, they'll charge it out of that account, the education and training account. Well, here at the council, we don't have that, so I charge it out of this one that's 230. And so what this policy would do is it would say, it would define where an expense like a conference, what line item that's supposed to come out of. And if this policy did that, we would actually need to create a new line item in our budget for that. But that's not a big deal. That's not a problem. It would it would come into effect for next year. But this was the original policy that was being proposed, and we had very quickly heard back from other department heads who are in O&P, and we've heard from finance. Betty Weeks in finance has been helping me with this, and there is a concern that this would put this is going to require some changes for department heads who manage their budgets, and they may not like that. They're going to have to change how they budget, and it's going to put some pressure on them in how they manage that budget. So there's an additional sort of aspect to this policy that's also being considered that is going to give these department heads a little bit more flexibility while these definitions kind of lock them in a little bit. And what the second part is going to be is going to allow department heads with the approval of the county auditor to transfer funds within each one of these categories. So you look right here, we have professional services. And we have 4 codes within that category. Really, we only have 3. That bottom one is not really a real expense. And so what the second part of this policy would do is it would raise the limit that a department can transfer money within their own department, intra-departmental transfers. Currently, the limit is $1,000. After that, the council needs to approve it. What this policy proposal would do is it would raise that to $5,000. So the auditor would be able to transfer funds within one of these categories up to $5,000. Anything more than that would need to go directly to the council. So let me give you maybe a specific example. Let's say that I'm managing this budget and I have, and it's nearing the end of the year, and we need to go to NACO, and but we only have $500 left in that account. but we have $2,000 left in the travel account, but this NACO trip's the only trip left, and it's gonna cost $2,500. Because it's within one of these categories, the auditor would be able to approve a $2,000 transfer from the from the travel account into the NACO travel account.
Because it's underneath the same subcategory of professional services?
Correct.
Okay,
If
thank
I
you.
wanted to do a similar thing, and instead I was short in this office expense and had extra money in travel, then the limit's $1,000. I would need to go to the council because it's across a different category. So in one sense, this policy would limit department heads by defining these codes and kind of narrowing the use for each one of these line items. The reason the council, some of you have expressed interest in this, is because when you're setting the budget, you want to know what those line items are going to be used for. Those line items need to have a meaning that is written down that can be referenced to. But at the same time, this raising the limit within a part of the budget is going to give the department heads the flexibility. So it's kind of a trade-off where we're asking a little bit of the department heads, but we're also giving them a little bit more flexibility within their budget. Now they have to have the funds. That's the auditor needs to approve those, and the auditor is basing his approval on the availability of funds. And then after, if it's over $5,000, it still must go to the council. So that's the policy that's being proposed. It's pretty extensive. It will require, if it gets through ordinance and policy review, it would be an ordinance amending county code to change that $1,000 limit. And then we would add this provision on these subcategories. And then there would be some additions to the countywide policy manual where we would have these definitions of these common codes that exist countywide. So.
Go ahead, Nolan.
How did we come with the number from 1,000 to 5? And if there is this approval, can the council who's responsible for the budget ask how many times, and will we know that that was transferred and done? Because just as you said, the council wants to know what's being done, but if travel was used, but yet some of that travel went to professional and technical, then I'd like to know that to see if we're keeping up on continuing ed or whatever else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll answer the second question first because that one's easier. We can contemplate in this policy that the auditor, and actually it's already the policy, that any transfers need to be reported to the council. In fact, in your packets at the end, you'll see it's reclassifications, but transfers also must be reported. And so that will continue, and we can continue to make that clear.
We know which from where to where? And from
Yes.
Yeah, let me verify that it needs to have code specific, that report needs to include what line item to what line item, but I am confident we can at least put that in the updated policy. To answer your first question on why 1,000 to 5,000, so 1,000 is the current policy, the current limit for intra-departmental transfers, which is what we're discussing here. The limit is $1,000. Over that needs to be approved by the council. $5,000 was a little bit arbitrary. What I will say is that since the council implemented the policy regarding intra-departmental transfers in, if I'm correct, late 2022, since then, the practice in the county has not actually been to request any transfers. The practice has instead been to simply put it in a budget opening. At least those transfers over $1,000. Generally speaking, the reason it may be advantageous to raise that limit to 5,000 is so that there are still transfers happening rather than just requesting more money in a budget opening. I can't speak for why those transfers aren't happening, but generally speaking, I can tell you that when a department needs more funding in a line item, rather than transferring it right now, they're simply just asking for more in the budget opening. And then they may come under budget in other portions of their budget at the end of the year, or they may not. I really don't know. You know, it's probably depends on the situation, but.
Part of that, Nolan, was that Betty said that, for example, somebody, a department needs tires for a vehicle, and in order to get those tires, they don't have enough money, because on some of these vehicles, they're pretty expensive. So instead of, you know, being able to transfer maybe intra-departmental, they're like Micah just said, they're coming to the council and requesting more money for their budget, when in actuality, if they could transfer for intra-departmental, they wouldn't need to have more money in their budget. Does that make sense, Nolan?
Yeah, I think the intent back in 2022 was for the council to have oversight on those transfers. My opinion is that the effect has been that most departments simply just ask for more money than rather than.
But I don't want to go on the reverse side of saying, if I know I can transfer, then I'm going to increase my request so I have a padding to transfer from.
Yeah, I can see that. I did ask Betty again, you know, we have this monthly report, but I'd really like to have a monthly report from each department for every intra-departmental transfer that they make on that. And that would, to me, give some kind of reporting or something for us to look at and go from there. But I can see where you're coming from, Nolan.
So in practice, right now, if we left the cap at 1,000, anything over that had to be, you know, brought to the council for a transfer. That triggers a budget opening, right? That's the only way we can do it.
It wouldn't trigger a budget opening, but it would just go to a budget.
Require a budget opening.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in effect, we're delaying the set of tires for the next budget opening.
And
that's the risk we run with that number. It doesn't have to be 5,000. I think the committee wasn't necessarily saying 5,000 is the number. It's just that was what was the number that was discussed.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
If the council wants a different
if
amount,
council's
we're
uncomfortable with
open
that,
to that,
we
yeah.
can go with a different number. It wasn't like that was a firm and a quantified 5,000 is the sweet spot number either, so.
I think the key to all of this, though, is less about the amount of transfer, all these kind of things. I think the key to this is that we just flat out have not had an auditor that was actually auditing and watching and saying yes and no, you know, on budgets.
Accountability?
Exactly. I think that is, to me, that's more the key than everything that we've just talked about today. I go back to, I talked with an auditor, and several of you, I think, have talked with him too, and he shared the story about how it came in the budget. It had he quoted like $38,000 to go buy a side-by-side for grounds. They went and bought a side-by-side with everything, all the, you know, with what they needed and what was requested. They went and bought the side-by-side. And actually it came in at $34,000. And so then that department came in and says, well, I want to use the other $4,000 for this, this, and this. And the auditor said, no, you requested the $38,000 for this particular item. And we got that item cheaper, so that rest of that goes back into the general fund. And he just, as an auditor, he just says no. Says if you want to change on some things, then go to your council in a budget opening and then share why. I think, to me, that's being prudent with taxpayers' money. And I think that's what we need to do here. This ability to reclassify and do a lot of that stuff, to me, and for government, to me, that's basically saying a budget is almost worthless. If you can just go reclassify things as you want, back and forth. In other words, there can be a little bit here and there, but in reality, there is a reason that we have a budget, and it is a certain amount. You talked about the NACO trip, and we didn't say we don't have enough in the NACO account to go. It isn't that bad. I guess we don't go. We decided to use the money up some other way. That's the budget. You live within the budget, and happy are we. We don't go. I don't know. That's how I feel. I think we need to be a little more, we need to say no a few times, because I think times are going to get tougher, and we just can't just say, well, we'll just raise taxes and go from there. I think we really need to, and it's going to take an auditor to really have that teeth into it to be that prudent with those things. So, but I like the idea. Now, those numbers, those three sets of numbers, the 100, 4112, 240, whatever it is, there's nothing there after, is there, that divides it out any further, right?
No.
See, and those categories, to me, basically gives a lot of latitude within each category as to how the money is used.
They are broken down so finance does sometimes break them down as like different expenses that department heads may want to use.
Past
that
the
money
third
for.
number.
But there's no code past the third
No
number.
code, but past the third number, they may have some little smaller categories.
Right.
Okay.
What state code basically mandates that we budget this way with these codes.
Yeah.
And these line items are like the lowest level of the budget as far as like what the budget is. But then there is a description, like I said, on the next page where department heads may add, like, this is what we're going to spend it for.
But help me, go back to where you were, right there, stop. So I'm in supplies and other services.
Mhm.
And I can move $5,000, and I take from communications and move it down to miscellaneous services. And this has been my headache ever since I got here, is miscellaneous services become a broad thing. And so now I have the potential to move 5,000 there, but I don't know really what it was for. Am I right?
Yeah, so one thing we could do about miscellaneous in particular is not put it in any of these categories. Right. And so it
I've always said that needs to be a certain percent. Now, that just grew if we allow that to go in miscellaneous, and I don't have to account for what it is.
Or actually the other way. From miscellaneous, it'll be more transferred quite frequently.
Right. So the key is to never put more than $5,000 in any account you don't want.
Yeah.
Micah, are they talking about in OMP, are you guys talking about expanding some of those 3-digit codes to where there's more of them and that they're more specific?
So getting like 240 and 241, 242, 243, and having that suite of 9 or 10 different options under. So office expenses is 240, and then 241 is the specific type of office expense.
Well,
That's about the best we can do.
That's where I think that's where at this point, I think that we need to go to our auditors, and what kind of glean from them more and more as we dig into this from experience and everything.
I like the idea of being, more specific about what is allowed in each category. But like one of the things that I see as I look through the budget, if somebody, they go buy donuts for office appreciation and they put it under office expense, and then somebody else goes out to lunch for somebody's birthday and they put it under miscellaneous services, and you know what I mean? There ought to be more of a definition of that kind of thing. The extra things that you do for your office are defined by this is the amount you can spend on that, and you always put it in this category across the county so that we know in our county offices, things like that, and I don't think the kind of office supplies that you buy needs to be, I think that's too onerous. But some specific things should be added in that are, some of those are so ambiguous, you know, how do you?
Part of those, the examples that you used would be addressed by the credit card policy we're talking about also, in what you can and cannot spend, use the credit card for, as far as a policy. Yeah, so like the example of a lunch or bringing in or going to get, we say that's on the card, then that means you can't use any other line item for the budget for that either. So it has to just be that way.
That's a whole nother issue.
That's what I think that's how those two things come together, and we haven't gotten down that road totally.
Yeah, I think
OMP, but
go ahead. I don't want to speak for the treasurer's office or for finance, but I think for some of what you're talking about, Mark, is more of a technological limitations where the credit card company just won't let us program certain line items to be spent out of, but we can have, policy can make those same sort of restraints. But again, it's like there's a balance between wanting to make sure that our policy is providing these internal controls with also, while kind of letting our department heads have some space and some breathing room.
But give it a quantified amount. This is how much you have to do that kind of thing with. We're comfortable with that. Go buy donuts, take people out to lunch, whatever.
And that sort of thing would be defined in probably, and Sandy, I think where that would probably be would be 240. Those kinds of things, like for example, when we do a meal in the council, you know, after a workshop, will come out of 240, and that's, I think, at least the initial proposal to O&P would probably put that in the 240 line.
See, to me, and in that case, you could say office expense is one line, 241 is office supplies. Like, that's a big difference to me. This is the expense of running our office. But I mean, that's, if you guys in O&P have talked about that.
No, we appreciate all the comments, because that's why I wanted Micah to come forward, because we need to keep you guys informed of what direction we're going, and any kind of comment or suggestions we have, we can certainly look at it in O&P, so.
And an important detail about that we've ran into, or not a challenge, a detail we need to talk about here is, like I was saying, 240, and then we could use 241, 242. Well, sometimes those codes have been used by a different department for something else already.
Yeah.
And so then we have a conflict, and then it's balancing, okay, how much is it gonna take for the county to shift and keep track of the historical costs associated with that line item versus now assigning it to a new title, which, I mean, the reality is, to get this 100% right, we would have to draw a line and say we're starting with new codes representing a different, the title on the code now is a different name than what it's historically been, and so there would have to be some cross-referencing until we have 2 or 3 years under our belts as a committee to then have that historical budget look back match exactly the current line we're referencing. So there's some of that still to work through, and that's part of the conversation.
Part of the process is, like Micah says, we've been working on this for at least 2 months now, and I see many more months still working on it, so.
It's gonna be a lot. And this example of the council budget is actually not even the best example, because we're pretty small.
Yeah.
If you look at like Public Works, you know, they've got at least twice as many, and most of those, or half of those, are unique codes that are only, they're 3-digit codes that only exist in that Public Works.
At least the way I'm seeing it, the summary of the intent with these codes is to create kind of like in the purchasing world, the match it up with a general ledger and a cost center. Merging these codes, which is a one single line item, to kind of mimic that utility.
And I had one other question about our budget in general, and I don't know if this is even a possibility, but there are several line items that we have in our budget that are offset by a revenue account. and the revenue account is nowhere to be found. It's really hard to, it's difficult to find. If there was a line item that has a revenue that's associated with it, that is offset, if it could be a part of that same grouping of budget, that there's a revenue that goes with this, like, or even if that, I don't know how to do that simply, or if that's too complicated, I don't know. But to me, that would be so helpful when there's things that people say, yeah, well, we spent this money, but there's money to pay for it on this. And so it's not simply an expense, it's all coming out of the general fund. That would be so helpful as a budget person. For me,
Having revenue and expense on the same page.
On the same page,
Where
yeah.
usually
Yeah,
what we
that's-
see, and I've seen with other government entities,
yeah,
you know, you've got a whole list of revenues, and then you gotta flip through a whole nother section to get to the expenses, and then you're flipping back and forth. If any hard copy is used digital, you've gotta have 5 screens for
Right.
different windows open. It
yeah, and only the
cumbersome.
ones that
I
are
don't know if that's
directly
a
offset.
technology thing, or if that's a,
Yeah,
where the limit is.
We don't have it on this file because council doesn't have any revenues, but
Yeah.
the departments that do have revenues, there is a separate, it's included in this, and you guys got these last year, remember the big binders, not quite as big as that one, but the big binders we all got. It did have those for the departments that brought in revenue, but they're not, okay, yeah, so there's our revenues, right there. And so they're there, but they're not lined up with an expense code. If, I think that, kind of matching, expenses that you're talking about like pass-through funds,
Yeah.
basically. I can talk to finance about that.
Well, another example of that is like when you have the Planners Association meals and people pay into it, but yet there's a debit, but we don't know what the revenue or what's coming in to match against that. Because that becomes confusing, because you're like, okay, that was spent there, but what was the budget for there? But yet,
and like the Human Resources Department does a gift every year, but it's paid for by some federal grant. So it's not really an expense to the county, but it'd be nice to see that offset. Just things like that I think would be helpful, if it's a possibility.
I can look into that.
I'm just in favor, why don't you just have a meeting without food and everything's fine?
Bring your
Save
own
us a
lunch.
lot of
I'm gonna
money.
take peanuts.
Yeah, you know. So I think what we're doing is we're trying to, you know, I'm sorry, but there are a lot of organizations, especially in government, that they want to just have departmental budgeting versus line item budgeting. And I am not in favor of departmental budgeting because it can just be moved around and everyone, you know, we can use it as we want. And I'm sorry, I do not like that idea. I think because it is taxpayer money, we need to go to a line item budgeting.
So, we're going to have an auditor again, which I haven't been in this form of government since we've had an auditor. So, I'm just wondering, will they come in and actually perform, it's our budget, we're this legislative body, will they actually perform an audit to see that it's spent for what it was ultimately allocated for?
That will be there, according to that, will be, yeah, his responsibility.
That's within
Matt.
their realm, even
They
though
will
it's
have to
our
do
budget
that,
as a separate,
yeah,
as a
in the
separate.
flow.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
that'll
then
be their day-to-day.
though we can still then also request audits, not necessarily by him, but by others to come in and do specific things if we, you know, to make sure to keep, you know, him, like, to keep our auditor.
Checks and balances.
Yeah, exactly, keep them true and going, which is, I think, most auditors would welcome that, say, you bet. You know, that's how you perfect, you know, we perfect the process. So, and we just want to make sure everything's being spent where it's supposed to be spent, right down to the last penny.
Thank you, Micah.
Yeah,
Awesome job.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great questions. Anything else on that? I don't think we've got the rest of it. Council member reports, do you want to hurry and go through those? Mark, would you start?
Sure. Sandy, do you want to talk about Fair Board, or do you want me?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So this morning, the Fair Board
Never even got an invite to that.
met, and it's just quite short and sweet as far as the meeting portion, where we Just kind of went over some updates, and mostly Bart mentioned the funding request for the ARPA funds that we saw today, and then the line items that were also in the RAPS tax. So he just gave us an update that was approved by the RAPS committee, and that it was on the proposal for the ARPA funding, which we've already addressed. And then we also, as a committee, took a tour where we actually walked around the fairgrounds and checked out all the facilities, and Bart gave commentary on some of the things that we've talked about, but now we went to the source, if you will, and actually looked at it and talked about it on site. Lots of great things there. Also many challenges with a lot of aging infrastructure and assets as far as facilities go there. So there'll be more conversation about moving towards and accomplishing some of the goals stated in the Fairgrounds Master Plan that was approved and went through the process last year, came before this body and everything. So we can talk about additional questions there if you have some, but the one update that I think, well, I feel like ought to be shared here is, the change was made to increase the fee for boarding animals on site, and there was some concern, and there was some turnover with long-term people using that facility. They chose to leave. All the stalls are again 100% full. Some of the stalls have been filled by people returning, going, it was still a better deal than out there on the market. Admittedly, Bart has said, yeah, we as an organization are still probably below market on the cost to board a horse there. So, but anyway, all the stalls are full, but that is some of the infrastructure that is aging and about to the point where it's costing more to repair than it would to be replace, or to have the hard discussion of do we replace. So, but it was a really good meeting. The other thing I thought I'd mention would just be maybe turn some time to Bryson for an update on activity in his office.
Yeah. Just want to go up there, or just want me to speak from here?
You're good.
Okay, so we just finished sending out UOCAVA voters ballots. So those are like military and overseas voters. Upstairs, I mean, they're doing great. We just hired, Wesley Bingham, our new finance director.
I met him today.
Yeah, he started part-time today. I guess yesterday. I'm getting my days mixed up.
He had an important conflict tonight, or he would have been.
Yeah, I was going to introduce him to you, but he had to go to a graduation ceremony. He will be starting full-time on June 10th. And him and Brittany are just kind of hitting the ground running when it comes to the budget process right now. We had a good discussion. I invited Matt to come with us to kind of meet Wes and understand the budget process a little bit. And we're going to work with Matt, and he's going to come and shadow with us the process there. And now we're just gearing up for the primary election. It's kind of the calm before the storm. And then ballots will come out in June, and I'll be running around all over the place. Yeah.
Thanks.
They go out the June 4th?
June 4th, yep. Well, mailed June 4th, in mailboxes later that week. Yeah.
But he can't, because he can't be at the county. You're on the ballot.
Are you on the ballot?
I'm on the ballot for the Republican primary.
Right.
So I can be hands-on with the Republican primary.
But in the general.
With the general, if I have an opponent, I won't be able to.
And if you don't have an opponent, you can.
Hands-on again.
But you don't have an opponent either.
You have a
They would
Democrat
to have
that's
already
filed?
There's someone gathering signatures to run as unaffiliated. So
Oh,
if
so
this
they didn't have to
candidate gets
file
enough,
that?
yeah, if he gets enough
What's
signatures,
the threshold for that for?
300.
Oh.
By when?
June 18th, June 18th.
Okay. Can I just say one more thing about the fairgrounds
Oh,
report?
yeah,
They talked
absolutely.
about a couple things that will come to the council eventually. And one of them is their alcohol policy. They need to update it. They did it a year ago, and then they've just learned some things throughout the year that they're gonna refine that. And when they get that put together, they will bring it before the council to be approved, so just kind of be
Does that go
expecting
to
that.
OMP first, though?
I would think so.
I would hope so.
I would think it would
I
need to,
thought so.
yes.
But it also should go through attorneys, right?
The attorneys have been involved so far.
Yeah.
But yeah, there probably will have to be the final review.
Yeah, they just found that it was too restrictive. They restricted some things that they didn't intend to and made it, they just have found as they've gone through the year that they need to reword some things, and they'll bring that to us. And the other one is, they have specific fees for different, like nonprofits pay a lower fee to use the facilities and other things. But if a nonprofit comes in and has an event that has 2,000 people that come, there's a higher impact on the cleaning, the toilet paper, the upkeep of everything. And so they're trying to figure out a way to do an impact surcharge. They're gonna try and figure out a way to do that based on the amount of people that are expected, or anyway. So they'll need to come probably before us when they get that figured out too, how they wanna do those impact fees and to get that before the council. So
Yeah,
those are two things.
The discussion on that was, Bart threw it out there as, hey, are we interested in pursuing this? And the board felt, yes, we should look at it. So there'll be lots more discussion from the board, fair board level first. But yeah, thanks for the extra granularity on that.
Those things will come eventually to all of us.
Yep.
Nolan.
I'm just going to put something out there that we all need to be thinking about. We all sat through the open space thing and trails and that through county council. Interesting enough, through planning and zoning, another thing came up with trails. Please read the master plan, because in the master plan it talks about that we want trails, but we also want to protect property rights. And so we had a pretty discussion in planning and zoning about whose responsibility is it for trails? Is it the person who's coming in to change some things, to donate ground or whatever? I raised some questions on that, and 90% of the commissioners were in agreement that we need to watch property rights in that area and be careful how we talk about or enforce trails or impose trails. For instance, the canal, there's asking for a feasibility study on the canal. I am a property owner by the canal. Nobody's come and talked to me as a property owner of what that affects. Canals go through some of the most productive farm ground in the valley. And if we're going to throw trails in the most productive part of agricultural, that impacts agricultural and their property rights. So, and I know we need trails as a community. I love them and need them, but I think we've also got to respect what we as Republicans say, and that is that we will uphold property rights and be ready to do that. So just be aware that that's a discussion that we had in planning and zoning, and it's going to come before us a lot. And so it was interesting on that, because there's twice that's in the last little while property rights and trails are coming, and they're both needed, but we've got to kind of come up with a balance. So
Thank you. Catherine.
Barbara, if there's anything you want to pitch in about the compensation committee today. We were talking about.
Go ahead.
We had a representative at Broker that was here. We're exploring, and his recommendation is that we do self-funding for the insurance, and we would switch to Select Health with that. And so we had a fascinating discussion on what that is, and he's said he would come to the council to give us a discussion of what that entails and the pros that would pose for us as a county. I thought it was a really good discussion, and thanks for facilitating that. And then we had a meeting, kind of, fire board, kind of a meeting. I don't know. There's changes with the fire board, and so now there have been 4 applicants to join the executive on the fire board. I was an applicant. Dave Erickson was an applicant. Stephanie Miller, the mayor of Hiram, was an applicant, and then I don't remember the individual, that gentleman's name. He's a fireman in Logan, but a resident of Newton.
He lives in Newton.
Yeah, resident of Newton, and he was I'm sorry, I don't remember his name.
Tompkinson, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, he is an applicant, and so we were learning a lot about what this actually is going to look like, and the executive will bring those names for who he selects to serve on that to the council, and I anticipate we will have lots of discussion about that, and I actually have some questions for our attorneys on that too. So other than that, I think it's been a while since we met, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
A long time.
it was 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yeah. UAC was great. It was really good to be down with most of you and to socialize with each other and our other commissioners and council members and learn. It was a very, I learned a lot in the majority of our meetings, and so, yeah, I enjoyed that opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah, bringing up UAC, I serve on the board, and we had a board meeting, of course, the night before, but I think most of what we talked about was brought up in discussion, you know, for the CSS and the MCAT and all of that good stuff. So I'm not going to report any more on that because everyone pretty well got informed on that. Thank you to all of those who submitted things to Micah on the new Open Meetings Act, and that's another thing that we are working on the OMP because we've got to get busy on that. Johnny Miller gave a great presentation, and we appreciate Micah working on that too, and that's about all I have.
Sandy?
I've been in Kansas for 2 weeks with my grandkids, so.
Wearing Ruby slippers?
I should have.
Nothing, no, everything was covered by other people.
Terrific. I don't have any more tonight, so let's go ahead and I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second it.
Second, we go into executive session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?